Hi guys, Marion Embossing here from Wow Embossing Powder, showing you a project made using the lovely Catherine Paula products and the Wow Embossing Powder products. I'm going to be showing you a bit of bumping with a stencil. I have to apologise about the state of my fingers, but I've been getting in an inky mess and it's fun. And I'm going to be using the Curacao from this lovely Aquatini trio from Catherine Paula and the Wanderlust. I have no idea why I got the opaque bright white out and showed you that, but hey, you got to see it. I'm also using the Wow ink pad and the Aquatini and Seafoam ink pads from Catherine. And my favourite stencil of Catherine Paula's, the Swoop. I absolutely love it. And for this technique, we're going to be using the stencil and a piece of cardstock. Now, this is going to go into a frame. So I've already cut the cardstock down for another piece, and this one is just a scrap piece of cardstock. So I'm going to put a little bit of tape on there just to hold it in place. And it doesn't really matter if you go light to dark or dark to light. Some people have preferences. It's a really, really old technique, and a friend of mine, Leandra Franick, showed me this years ago. And I just love this technique, but I also love being able to emboss onto it as well. So I'm sharing it with you guys. So I've done Seafoam, and then I've just rubbed off the spare ink that was on there, and then you can just sort of lift that up, take it off, because bumping means we're actually going to bump it over slightly. So I'm just going to line it back up again, make sure it's in exactly the same place as it was, and then this time I'm just going to move it over. So you can either go to the left or the right or up or down. It's entirely up to you, it doesn't really matter. And then when you're happy with that, it actually looked like I didn't move it much, but I did, I promise you. But when you're happy with how much is going to show through, you then go on to your next colour, and this time I'm using Aquatini. I sped it up last time, and I don't know whether you noticed, I sort of got a white heart and placed it on there. I just want to make sure that it's going to be big enough to die cut the heart from. So I'm just going all over again, covering the whole thing again. It's such a gorgeous technique. I love this technique. I'd love to see what you guys do with it as well. There's so many beautiful stencils that Catherine does, and you can just see, that was a real quick little see. You can just see where you get like a shadow effect. Now, there, I'll show you for a little bit longer. When you get a close-up, you'll see much easier. It's much nicer when you can see it closer up. So I'm keeping the stencil in place because I'm going over the Aquatini, and then I'm just going to take the Wow embossing pad and go all over that. Now, it's gonna, with the Wow embossing pad, it's different to other ink pads. So it's a much stickier ink as opposed to a wet ink, and you can find all this on Catherine's website. So it stays open a lot longer. Not that we need it in this instance, but it works great. And I'm going to take the Wanderlust. Now, if you haven't used Wanderlust, oh my goodness, it is so, so beautiful. And it picks up all the colours that's underneath. It's a translucent glitter embossing powder, and it's just, well, it's just gorgeous. Anyway, I could just waffle on about glitter embossing powders. I love glitter. So I'm going to flick off the excess. You see there, you can just give that a flick. And then I'm going to take my heat tool. Now, you'll notice I heat from underneath. I've sped this up a little bit. I like to heat from underneath wherever possible because I just think it gives a nicer effect. And what I've done there, I just went off camera, just a die cut. I used the primitive hearts from Sizzix, and I just die cut that large one out of it. And that's why I checked earlier to make sure that that size die was going to fit on the area that I was doing. So now I've got another little die cut. This time it's just a piece of white chipboard. I like to use white because if I've got a translucent powder, then I know it's going to be the true colour coming through. If I used the buff side of it, you're not going to see the true colour, whereas on white you do, and it's lovely. Now, I'm also inking this in the Aquatini, just as another excuse to use Aquatini because it's my absolute favourite colour. But also it will just add a bit more depth to it as well, because that the Curacao is a translucent colour. And then I was just showing you there, the Wow heat tool is a 2-speed heat tool. And when I'm drying things like ink, I'll just do it on number 1, but all my embossing I'll do on number 2. So just making sure it's nice and dry, and then I'm just going to push it into my ink pad, get it covered in ink, and then I'll sprinkle the Curacao all over it. I hope I'm saying that right. I don't know if it's Curacao or Curacao. That's what we say in England anyway, that's my excuse. So I've just covered that all over, and then I'm going to heat set that until it all melts. And this time I'll do it on the number 2 setting, and it's so fast. So just heat from above. I'm sorry I'm blocking out the view there, but you can just heat from above, make sure it's all melted. And to get a much smoother effect, I keep that heat on there so it's nice and hot. You could let it cool down and then go back in with your ink to do like a double or triple emboss. But while it's still hot, it's going to take that powder again. So I just redid that. And now this is the sparkles that come in this set, and they're called Crushed Ice. Absolutely beautiful. And sparkles can be used, they're just pure glitters, so they can be used with double-sided adhesive and that. But if you melt your powder again, you can sprinkle the sparkles into it. And I really like doing that. I also like taking a plain powder and adding sparkles to it to make my own sparkly embossing powder, which looks really cool. You can mix your colours with that, looks really nice. But this is a nice little way just to add a little bit of glitter. You don't want too much for this. So I'm just going to layer the hearts up just to see that I'm happy with them, that they're going to look all right, and I am very happy with them. And then next I take the lovely Catherine Paula Welcome die. Really impressed with this because some dies don't cut a thickness, and this I've just gone ahead and cut a normal black cardstock, but then I cut that really thick foam with it, and it cut beautifully. It was wonderful, and I wanted to use the thick foam underneath just to give it a bit of dimension. And a quick little tip, although it can sometimes be messy, is to spray adhesive the front of the foam, and then you can stick your cardstock to it. Sometimes I get in more of a mess when I use a liquid adhesive, and this can seem a little bit messy, but then it just all rubs off, so it's not too bad a thing. It just seems a bit yuck at first. So I can just lay it down and get it all in place. And as I say, it can be a little bit messy to start with, and I'm sorry I've gone out of camera view there. I get carried away when I'm videoing. I'm just sort of in my own little world. There we go, I come back into view now. So that's all laid up nicely on there, and that just gives it a nice bit of dimension. It's a lot easier than when you're using thin dies like this than trying to cut little foam pads. That can be horrendous. So I would always recommend doing something like this. And as I say, I was impressed with how well it cut. To take off any sticky, then I just put a bit of talcum powder on there and then rub the talcum powder off, and then that gets rid of any sticky that's on there. So this is my picture frame. It's what we'd call from the pound store, and yours would be the 99 cent store, sorry. I'm over in England, if you couldn't tell. Excuse me. So I'm just going to stick some white cardstock just to the back of the frame, the stand part of it. And then Make sure that's lined up nicely. And it's such an inexpensive present, this. It's fabulous. And then I'm going to put it in. I've taken out the glass already. I didn't want the glass in there. You could leave the glass in there if you wanted to. I personally preferred it without the glass. And then I'm just going to start to layer up the hearts. So I'm going to make sure that fits in there and layer them up. And there you go. That's it, finished. So I just want to say thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I look forward to doing another one. I'd love to see what you guys create with this technique and with Catherine's products and the Wow products. So I look forward to going on there and having a little nosy. Thanks, bye.